Welcome back to the one and only podcast. Glenn, how are you?
Great. I can't believe it's another month. 2024 is just...
Every month you say this, don't you? Every month.
But it's crazy, yeah?
Tell me, highlights in the last month?
Oh, so far. It has to be the last club sale in May. We had the Wolfa and Woodcat and Droyton Spring Select sale. I was really chuffed how that went for the lads. Will Horsley and
Were
Richard.
they chuffed?
I think, yeah, they really were. They really were. And they put so much work into it. And the presentation was just phenomenal. So well done to those guys. I think they topped 5.5. Yeah, but really good averages. So well done to that. What else have you been doing?
What else have you been doing?
We went to Emerald Expo over in Ireland. Yeah.
In the Republic, is it?
Republic of Ireland, yeah. That was sort of our first event with our new partnership with Dennis Barrett Auctions over there.
I've got a funny story, actually. Val, you know Val that sits in the group? I signed off an invoice the other day and I put a wee comment on the bottom of it. I said, put to ROI section. She came down and she was like, return on investment? What do you mean return on investment? And I said, Republic of Ireland. She's like, oh, she's like, our worlds differ so much.
But honestly, that we should call that return on investment. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to that. We've got a few events
coming up. Yeah,
coming up with Dennis. A few online sales. We had one online. Was the Emerald Holsteins, and then Jimmy's got a few sheep sales booked in as well.
Yeah, limousines, Bailey's limousines.
Bailey's limousine as well.
End
So
of this month.
that's all going along tickety-boo, really, yeah.
And anything exciting in your real life?
Real life, just not really. The weather hopefully is going to. Well,
the weather has taken up.
The weather has taken up, and we've had a couple of nice nights down at the lake, and just life. It's been busy. It just seems to be flying in.
Oh.
Yeah, Isaac's in the middle of his exams, which is really good. This is
Really good for
Nat 5. No, he's it's good.
He's doing well.
He's doing well. So
Good. And Julia?
She's had a big netball win. Happy. Yeah.
Nice.
So just life's been busy. Oh, how can we forget?
What?
I went to the most awesome wedding.
So you did?
Yes.
How did you forget? The main man.
The main man. Yeah,
makes this all
that was a
happen.
highlight. Just remembered. So our Herds media guy, Ali, and Sophie got married. So that was beautiful. That was up at Springkeld. Yeah.
Nice.
So look at him smiling.
If you could see him.
He's
if the
just-
camera could see him.
Yeah, no, that was really, I really enjoyed the evening with those guys, and yeah, beautiful setting.
Good. Exciting. Very good.
What about you, Laura? What did you do? Oh, you've had pups.
I've had puppies.
Not you personally.
But my little dachshund has had puppies. Big shout out if you want a miniature sausage. I'm your gal.
I'm gonna sell. Oh, could we have what about an auction of?
Dachshund. Well,
It's
possibly.
sale time, folks, and who's gonna buy her?
Look at the length in her.
The longest sausage dog ever.
So yeah, that's keeping me busy just now. We had some really good traction from our last podcast with John.
Yeah.
And Farm to Fork.
And we had a day in the office with all his
We did.
meals,
He
which
sent
were
us in, yeah.
very, very nice.
Yeah, my freezer is now stocked.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really good. And yeah, as you say, just the weather's finally taken up, so you can get outside on a regular, and it just makes everyone so much happier, doesn't it?
Yes.
But on to this month, we've got a good, interesting, educational one ahead of us.
I'm really looking forward to it.
We have Mark Pearson from Oxbury Bank, and we have this guy that does a bit of a sheep farming in Ayrshire, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's, what's he called?
Cammy Wilson from the
Cammy
Sheep
Wilson,
Game.
That's the one.
When you picked me up this morning, I don't know if I'm going to admit to him, but I've actually never watched the Sheep Game.
You're grounding him by saying that, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if I should tell him or not, but because but I've seen lots of little clips
Yes.
of the Sheep Game, but I've never watched an episode.
Very well known in this part of the world.
But I love, and he also does the Fed for Farmers podcast,
Yes,
which
I
I
do.
really
I
enjoy
that podcast.
listening
I think
to.
it's a great podcast.
I actually mentioned that in my last
He did a whole article,
column.
actually. We'll have to mention that to him and see if he's read it.
In the last column I did for, I don't know what it was for, but I mentioned it sort of gave me the inspiration for that column in the last.
Very good. So,
Good.
without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so welcome to the one and only, everyone. This is our May edition. Fantastic. And we have travelled. We're not aboard away today. We have travelled to the Shire, to the Ayrshire. There is only one Shire. Laura was driving today. She kept it under 100.
90
kilometres.
Come on.
Kilometres per hour. So that
European.
that was really nice. And we had a great conversation. I was on the phone the whole time. Didn't have to speak to her.
It was marvellous. Really enjoyed it. Peace.
And we are in Stewarton. Anybody who's been in Stewarton before? You're missing out.
Just me.
Just Cammy. So we are with the one and only Cammy Wilson of the Sheep Game. Really looking forward to... I've never met you before.
No.
But we're looking forward to having a great chat. And also Mark Pearson from Oxbury Bank. So that's a great combination, Mark. How are you doing today?
Really good, thank you. Yeah, really good.
So, Cammy, why did you invite... Did we invite Mark? Or did
We invited Mark, yes.
Yeah.
We've made this introduction today.
Yeah, excellent. So we're really looking forward to having a great chat. And yeah, let's go. Cammy, tell us, like, I have to admit something. I was leaving the house this morning and my son said, why are you not going to work today, Dad? And I said, well, I am. I'm going up to Ayrshire to do a podcast with Cammy Wilson. Oh. He goes, you've never watched the Sheep Game? And I said, well, let's watch one now. But then the phone rang and I never got to watch one.
No.
So that, but I did. I said, my son's called Isaac. He said, which one is? He watches the trimming guy, Hoof GP.
Oh, Hoof GP, yes, the trimming guy.
He goes, no,
yeah.
Cammy's better because he's something different.
True story.
Something different every day. So. So tell me. I know we said we don't want to hear about, but tell us a little bit about.
No, absolutely.
That. Tell us a little bit about that.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be people listening to yourselves that have never heard of the Sheep Game or
Yes.
whatever. Our thing is the YouTube. It all started 5 years ago. I just thought, I was making videos on Snapchat for local boys and having a laugh and putting all your problems on there, and that's where the actual folk often wonder where the name the Sheep Game comes from.
So this was you doing like your normal
Day-to-day work.
Day-to-day sheep work.
Everything's a disaster, especially 5 years ago. This is before I had a set of wrappers, and it was all wee hurdles that hooked together, and the sheep would bust them, and they'd snap, and it'd be just an absolute nightmare trying to do every job. I had to borrow trailers, and everything was a shambles. So I would just Snapchat my day-to-day disasters, share it with the boys around the Shire, as we said, and they would enjoy it, because one thing that makes you feel better is seeing your neighbour have a worse day. Do you know?
That is so true.
Yeah,
Like,
it does.
When milk price is really bad, but then the guy that's losing a little bit less than the other guy, he's quite happy.
Yeah.
I'm only losing 50 grand this month.
And it's one of those weird things. It's like you don't wish ill on them, but if you're having a bad day and someone sends you a Snapchat and they've got 2 dead tups, it makes you feel a wee bit better.
I can imagine.
You don't wish that to happen to
no.
them, but all of a sudden you're like, do you know what? My day's actually not that bad.
It's mad.
It's perspective.
So that's how it all kicked off.
Yeah, a bit of banter on that, showing all the disasters and the things you wouldn't want your mum to see on Facebook. And that's where the name The Sheep Game came from, because I'd always sign it off going, that's the sheep game for you. Kind of the way, if somebody puts 10 grand into buying cryptocurrency and they lose it all, they go, that's the crypto game for you.
Yeah.
So that's where the sheep game came from. It's actually a negative thing. It's like when it's a disaster, you go, that's the sheep game. Although, not much negative about the sheep game now, eh?
No.
I know.
Tell you an interesting fact, I've not shared this on social media yet. Before the sheep game started, sheep were only £2 a kilo.
There you go.
Now look at it. No, I don't want all the credit. There is a lot of coincidences out there, but that one seems
Do you
extreme.
think it could be anything to do with it? Like Jimmy Little seems to take all the credit
Our
for it.
auctioneer seems to, but I mean, that's
But
not
it's
fair,
nothing
is
to
it?
do-
He
it's
takes
not-
all the credit.
It's
It's just
nothing
such a
to do with
To the
coincidence,
sheep
isn't
game.
it?
It's nothing actually to do with Jimmy. it's to do with the sheep
Since the
game.
sheep game started, it's just went like this and
There you
never
go.
stopped.
We should do a correlation between sheep game followers and the
The,
weight
the lamb price.
per kilogram.
In fact, I'm going to do a graph of that because I bet you it's uncannily similar.
And publish it. Oxbury Bank should publish it.
There you go. Yeah, see right. Economic findings.
That would be really serious.
Yeah.
And today in Oxbury Bank we've correlated this. That would be really, really. Yeah.
You cannot lose in sheep. So no, that's how the sheep game started, and it's grown and grown at a crazy. It started as a bit of banter, and it's just grown and grown to the point where it is where it is now. And
how many viewers are you getting?
I mean, steadily we'll do sort of 40 to 50,000 views in a video, which is it's not massive. I mean, Hoof GP's into the millions, but he's in another level altogether. But it's just such a loyal supportive, interactive group. That's how our clothing and merchandise does so well, because the people that watch the sheep game get behind us, they really do support you. They get on board, they'll buy a jumper, and they know it's coming to us to help us further the cause to buying this farm that we want to buy, which is something we should discuss while you're here.
All right, on the spot now.
Well, actually, funny, when you said, Laura said that, yourself was coming from Oxbury. I've been speaking to Terry.
Yep.
Terry Butcher.
Yep.
Not the
Terry Butcher.
not the Terry Butcher. Unfortunately, he must be sick of hearing that. Yeah. Poor guy. But yes, about a farm local to us, actually, that's in the Scottish Farmer this week. It's finally in the Scottish Farmer. So there's one in there on for 900,000. That is right next door to me.
That needs to be bought, doesn't it?
Well,
Once in a lifetime chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Before this discussion goes any more, can we get any commission out of this deal if he does it? Like
Come on.
an introduction.
Yeah, well, you never know.
Okay, carry on.
They'll waive the commission up with 5. To be fair, I don't see it. The tricky thing with this is it's a fantastic stead, massive steading, 2 houses on it. There's only 16 acre with it.
But you don't want the steading. You want the land, don't you?
Well, speaking to people, it's that old thing. It's like it's easier to put the shed on the land than to bring the land to the shed.
Yeah.
So, really, folk are like, would you not be better getting 150, 200 acres where rubbish, no steading, and an old rundown house that you can then work on and improve over the years? Because once you've got the ground, you can do something. But if you've just got a big steading, I don't know. It's
people in similar situations to yourself have done that. They started off with like a shell of a house or no house and built up from there. Because you've got to start somewhere, haven't it? And it's the hardest thing as a bank to support that first time buy.
Yeah.
I know it's easy to do the big sort of £1 million deals where they've got loads of security and loads of accounts showing the profitability, but that's the hardest thing on the bank, is to get those deals over the line. But the most rewarding ones, because you've got to really bend over backwards to make sure they work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. I can't sit the fence much longer because it's in the paper now. But I am still swithering on it whether it's the right move or not. Because obviously, where we are filming this today, this is an industrial unit, and we obviously pay quite substantial. I think it's very fair rent, I should say, because I'm good mates with the guy that owns it. I think it's very fair rents, but it is a rent, and it is something that could, if we kitted out an agricultural building, which this stead already has,
right,
You'd have everything in one place.
This is a fantastic facility here.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Driving in here,
A location and
how tidy is the place?
Really?
This is the nicest industrial estate in Ayrshire. I know that's maybe not saying much, anyone that knows Ayrshire, but
And a new
this is
greenfield
immaculate.
farm being built. Isn't there a new greenfield farm? What's that on the entrance coming in?
No, that's actually just a quarry.
Oh, is
That's
it?
just topsoil. Taking topsoil out of
And
there.
the building's behind it.
And then
there's
that is Valley Blacknose sheep in there. He's got one of the largest flocks in the UK.
Right.
Valley Blacknose.
Wow.
There's over 200 of them in there. So
You're bound to know him. You're the big time Valley Blacknose auctioneer.
I don't.
I've got you'll know Ayrshire
Glenista,
Valley.
man.
What's Ayrshire Valley Blacknose?
right.
Tom Blackwood. Yeah. Tom will not mind a shout out. So the place is. We're saying all nice things. The place is immaculate.
Yeah.
But that is always a factor. As much as it genuinely is a really good, it's ridiculously good rent. I think there is always that element of you could be putting it towards a mortgage.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Although there'd be that much in interest, it would
So
save us
good.
paying a rent.
So that's a little bit about how you got going. So Mark,
Yeah.
from Oxbury Bank,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how you got into banking.
Right.
Tell us how you started off.
Well, I was in the livestock industry. I went to Newcastle University, left there in '95, went straight. I did my dissertation on livestock marketing, and George Forbes saw my dissertation, saw something in me, and I joined County Auctions in 1995 as a trainee auctioneer, doing a lot of the deadweight work, which was really great. Northumberland, Scottish Borders, a beautiful part of the world, great people. And I loved it, really enjoying it. And you guys all know yourself, it's all about understanding and trust with your farmer base, because some of those people out there, they're selling the suckler calves, they're selling the lambs in a period of 2 or 3 months, and that's their whole income for a year. So you've got to make sure you're doing a good job for them. And some fantastic farmers in that part of the world. Sadly, as you all know, in 2001, foot and mouth decimated the industry there and most of the north of England. I had, 68 farming customers taken out with foot and mouth. Really sad times for everybody. It was getting really bad press and people started talking about the £1 million farmers, but they weren't going on the farm and showing the distress on some of these people being taken out, years and years and generations of work in pedigree stock being taken out. I was doing quite a lot of valuations for the banks and doing cash flows because these farmers are taken out, getting back into farming, and the banks were a bit worried about it. So NatWest Bank approached me and said, we need some more agriculture experience in the bank. So I ummed and ahed and I thought, well, go on, I'll give it a couple of years and come back to what I love and back to the borders. But then life took me down to Bakewell in Derbyshire, which is a cracking part of the world. Some really good farmers. And I enjoyed it, loved it. Using the same basis as to get a good customer base, you know, to understand them, understand the people and get trust in them. And if it's selling livestock or selling money, it's the same thing, really.
Yeah. What's the big difference between Derbyshire and Northumberland?
Derbyshire and Northumberland is quite weird. My average size farm in Derbyshire was 98 acres.
That would be in
Peak District, the Peak District, really good area in the Peak District because they were dairy farmers. They kept all their own cattle, and they diversified into the holiday trade a lot because really popular holiday destinations. I think the biggest difference is the size in acres. I grew up on a farm in East Yorkshire. And there's some big arable units out there. And I was sat in the field at bonfire night, one of my pals down there, and he says, this is a big old field, Tom, isn't it? And he says, yeah, it's 110 acres. And I said, you know, my average size farm in Derbyshire is 98 acres. Wow. Just shows a big variation in the country.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. But going from auctioneer into finance, was that like a smooth transition?
No, it was a lot to learn.
Yeah.
A lot to learn. But I think now in hindsight, I was probably a good time in my life. I was, where was I? Sort of late 20s. Sadly, I was injured. I couldn't play rugby. So I was in a new part of the world. And I think my grounding, the old-fashioned days of when you took a customer on, you had a big pile of paper. And it's all in there. So you did the background reading of what they've done and how they've progressed over the years. So I took sort of a lot of time getting to know these farmers. And once you get to know them and you rock up on a farm and, hang on, said, this guy knows me and knows my business, you get some kudos and they talk about you and it goes from there. So a lot to learn, but just myself and ourselves in Oxbury, we're big believers. Agriculture is the hardest thing to get your head into. We can teach the banking side of things. So we got a lot of graduates from Harper Adams, Newcastle, Reading, coming in and joining us. And they know the agriculture. They're great kids. They know the agriculture. We've just got to teach them the banking.
The one thing I want you to get across to our listeners, a lot of people will have heard of Oxbury Bank, and a lot of people won't have heard about Oxbury Bank. I was lucky enough to be at the CMEX conference in January this year, where Nick Evans, he's the
MD,
the guy who started it all off. His story was phenomenal. It was also inspirational. I forget how many years it's been since there's been a bank established in the United Kingdom, but it was just a phenomenal. Yeah. I think he just woke up one day and said, "Let's start a bank," but maybe more than that. But I also look at the percentage. If you look at the other countries that have dedicated agricultural banks, their agriculture is much stronger than ours has been, and I think we're in a real exciting period in Britain, where we've now got a dedicated agricultural bank, and I think things will really flourish. Tell us a little bit about Oxbury, the philosophy, and where you guys are going to aim to go.
Be delighted to. I've been at Oxbury for nearly 2 years. It's actually now been trading for just over 3 years. February 2021 it started. Dedicated agricultural bank, doesn't do anything else. Now, a dedicated agricultural bank isn't something new. There's Rabobank, Bank Agricole have been going on for over 100 years. But in those countries, the GDP from agriculture is a lot more than it is in the UK. Mainly down to understanding the industry. Yeah, we've been trading for 3 years. We've got, it's a simple theory of banking. We get money in and then lend it out. We've got over £1 billion of savings in the bank from 35,000 plus customers. And we've got 800 million out and growing to 3,500 customers. And it's a simple basis. We've got to get out and farm. We've got to understand their business and know where they want to go. And the simple thing is, I think the high street banks have moved away from the relationship banking. Because a lot of times I'm getting phone calls saying, Mark, I'm a tenant farmer. You know me. You've known me for the last 10 years. I'm a tenant farmer. I've got an opportunity to buy my farm. I've gone into my high street bank and they say, we don't do that sort of thing. I don't know who my relationship manager is. Can you come and speak to me? Yeah. Now that is a great opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity for these guys to buy their farms as sitting tenants. And that deliverance from the high street banks is going more and more automated on call centres or online. And there's nothing like, if you see somebody, go to your local show and say, Mark, I'm looking at doing this next year. You give them a card and they look quite surprised that it's got a telephone number and they can phone me directly. Yeah, it's simple.
I think it's exciting. And what you're saying is you'll consider the person's bank account and accounts, but you'll also value their skill set and their circumstances.
Massively.
And I think that's where the banking system has probably failed agriculture. Well, definitely since the crash, going back to 2008.
Yeah, massively. And it is really quite a powerful thing when you're on a farm and you see the older generation are probably just wasting the time away, not too bothered on it. This younger generation are coming in, really want to take it forward, but potentially the accounts are sort of just showing a bit of an uplift and things haven't been good. So the big question as me as a relationship manager, are the next generation capable of doing it? And I get asked, I've had a phone call this morning that said, is this next generation capable of doing what they want, doing what they say they're going to do? And that's quite powerful because it's a big onus on me to say, yes, they are. But that's part of the fun of getting under the skin of the farm, getting on the farm, because that's a huge thing. We will be on farm, no matter what we lend, we'll be on farm to have a look around that farm and more importantly, sound that person out.
It's exciting for the next generation to have a bank that has that philosophy. I think it's a game changer. Really, I'm excited about the next 20, 30 years with Oxbury.
And I know, Glenn, you've been involved in one of those. Another thing, being a dedicated agricultural bank will take a view on the value of the livestock, which is a huge thing because tenant farmers, I come across lots of tenant farmers being held back because they haven't got the tangible security. They haven't got the acres, they haven't got the land, they've got no tangible security. But they might be milking 600 cows, have 500 or 600 followers, quality pedigree stock, which is worth a lot of money.
And the skill set to continue to develop that asset.
Too right.
Yeah.
So we will lend against an agricultural charge south of the border, or debenture. We'll put value in that livestock. So there are quite a number of tenant farmers who have been crying out for a new investment in parlours, new investment in young stock buildings, but haven't been able to do it because there's no tangible security. We've looked at these businesses, looked at their accounts, looked at the forecasts, and say, do you know what? We will take an agricultural charge. We'll monitor that agricultural charge. We'll want stock numbers every 6 months. And maybe people like yourself, Glenn, going to value the stock, but we will lend against that, which has revolutionised some of these businesses. It isn't often you go on or make a phone call saying, yes, we will support your business, and you can hear sobbing at the end of the phone because he didn't think he was going anywhere.
Yeah, that's nice.
So can we maybe do a wee scenario here? Cammy, I don't know, have you ever been this quiet on a podcast before?
No,
My goodness.
I know, I'm usually butting in. Someone made a good point. No, I don't know if you know Brendan from Farming Partners. I did a podcast with him, and someone said that they really liked that one because I knew nothing about what he was talking about, so I didn't butt in so much. And that's kind of what's happening here. The problem when I interview sheep guys I jump in all the time.
I really liked that episode. Brendan was a little bit cagey. He was a bit...
Maybe just new for him.
He was because he didn't know me, I think.
Yeah.
And then I was quite bullish and like, tell us this and tell us that. And I think it was maybe, but it loosened up as it got on.
It was really good. Yeah.
A fantastic thing he's doing. But yeah, I mean, one thing we should do a scenario. But one thing I haven't mentioned there that I think is correct is Oxbury the lowest deposit lender for buying a farm?
We lend 75% loan to value.
Yeah. Is that the lowest?
That's the lowest.
Yep.
Yeah. I think some of the other competitors are 60 and 65%. Yeah, so we are the lowest. We also use local valuers. We're big believers in that partnership of local valuers. So I don't want somebody coming over from Manchester to come and value your farm. Yeah, I want somebody who knows the area, knows the people, and knows exactly what's happening. Yeah, 75% loan to value will go.
So I want to do a wee bit of a scenario here, Cammy, if you don't mind. And you can kind of explain the process if Cammy was going in for finance with Oxbury or how they could finance your circumstances.
Yes.
So the listeners can kind of get a feel for how Oxbury would
would
facilitate
use this
that
example that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Let's fire on.
So this farm, it's in a Scottish farmer this week. Unbelievable steading, as we've said. Not much ground with it, but it's 900,000. So
How many acres, Cammy?
16.
16.
But the steading is an acre.
Yes.
You know, it's one of the biggest. Well, it's certainly up there with one of the biggest straw-bedded cattle sheds, and there's a massive grain shed. Like, it's huge steading. 2 big indoor silage pits, fantastic bit, immaculate houses, a 3-bed and a 2, but really, really nice unit. Just doesn't have the ground. A caveat to that is that I rent ground on 3 farms around it.
Okay, yeah.
But then that's only temporary seasonal let, so we can't read too much into that. But say that's 900,000 I want to borrow there. at 25% is something like what 225,000 or somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah.
So I need to come up with 225,000. That's if
Ideally,
it's valued at 900,000.
Yep.
I'm right in saying.
Yep.
But then other wee things I've been looking into, because it's all new to me. Like I'm a shepherd's son. Like the financials of things was never anything that was a factor for us. You've got like stamp duty. Am I right in saying that?
Yep.
That's probably, I think it's about 60,000.
Rule of thumb, you take 250,000 off the figure and times by 5%. So yeah, you're about there.
Yeah, so you're coming up to about 300 grand you need to go into this
Yeah.
place. And then you've of course then got to make your payments and stuff.
Yeah.
But an interesting one we were speaking to Terry about it is, you touched on it again by clarifying it's loan to value, not so much deposit.
Yeah.
Because if that farm at 900,000 is valued at 1.2, you would lend the 900,000 without a deposit.
Yeah. But why would you be able
that's
to
it.
buy
Why
it
would
at
you say
900
that?
at
Yeah, I know,
1.2?
I know.
That's the ideal scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we will go from the
yeah.
valuation figure. Because a lot of the case, people buy that sort of farm which fits their model, fits the next door, and normally pay over the odds on it. So they might buy it at 1.2, but their value comes along and says it's only worth 900.
Yeah, that's more often the other way.
That's normally the case.
Maybe
That
if it's
sort of
family
down.
to family, you might get away with
Yeah,
it.
so it
those
might, yeah,
scenarios.
very much so. Or sometimes there are people in the farming world who really want that young lad or young lass who's been farming to take it, and so they'll take a slightly lower price.
So I phone Terry back and say,
Yeah.
Right, I think I'm going to go ahead with this.
Okay.
What does he
Terry
need- what does he-
will
what
be
does he need
there.
from me?
He'll be needing your last 3 years' accounts. Yeah.
Disaster.
Oh
Yep.
dear, that's not a great start. That's
He
the
told me
shame.
that. That's why I've not phoned him back.
Or
No, but in all seriousness, but there is going to be people listening to this with bad accounts.
yeah, very
but
much so.
don't let that be the end
No.
of the thought process.
Yeah.
There's normally sometimes people have accounts are a set of accounts for a reason. Yeah, there's sometimes a lot of things going on in businesses which have changed. Yeah, I've seen some not so great accounts in the last sort of couple of weeks, but they've spent a vast amount of money building stock numbers up.
Exactly.
Yeah, repairs and renewals on the farm. Yeah, so when you actually talk about and get under the skin, that's the beauty of sort of where we are at Oxbury. We're dedicated to the cause. We really want to get out on farm. So yeah, you turn up on farm, you see the accounts, think, oh God, there's going to have to be something moving these. Then you turn it up to the farm and say, what's happened here in the last 3 years? Oh, we've done this, and that. Subcontractors. Yeah, there was subcontractors 100 grand, and I said, no, you do your own contracts, and what's all that for? And he said, they're builders. And that's all come off the bottom line. So what, generally speaking, we would ask for the last 3 years set of accounts. Ideally, those last 3 years sets of accounts show that you can service this 900,000. But then you've got, if they don't, you've got to do a business plan saying, right, okay, the rent for these premises is going to come in. Yeah, you're going to rent somewhere else out. The sheep numbers are at that level. This is what the income are going to generate, and we've got to be able to show that your business is viable to borrow that £900,000. Yeah, we do a big report. We do all sort of the credit reference searches to make sure that's all okay. And then we put our recommendations behind your budgets.
Yeah, I suppose the thing for me, thinking about, we're certainly in the next couple of years, I think we're maybe going to be in a position to go for it and try and get the right place. I mean, the big thing with this place that we're discussing here is that a couple of reasons, like I'm big in nostalgia. Like I love nostalgia. Like I'm my main location where most of my sheep are, that's where I was born. Like I've been there my whole life. I don't want to go anywhere else. This farm's next door. I worked there when I was a wee boy. It's and I rent the ground. There's 16 acres with it, but I rent the ground that's on that farm as well. So that kind of falls into it as well. So I like those kind of wee things. I wouldn't just buy somewhere. Like I'll be honest, I wouldn't buy somewhere 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't do it. I'm just not that way made up. I just have to be.
Ayrshire bred and born.
Aye, it's
an
I'm
emotional
been
attachment.
brainwashed.
A lot of
it
farms
is.
are. A lot of people
I'm
are.
But
absolutely
there
brainwashed with
is
here.
so much emotional tie-up with land, isn't there?
Very
And it's not a bad thing, but it also can stop you maybe doing things as well.
Oh, it definitely could hold you back. Even
Definitely.
like tenancies is a big one. Like, there's no really any tenancies. This is dairy country.
Yeah.
There's no long-term tenancies about here. There's the odd one comes up, but pretty rare. Whereas, maybe some more hill blocks or certainly Northumberland, we're seeing a few popping up.
Yeah,
now
they
at this
are.
moment. There's one on just now, I think, for...
Yeah. There is just come on this last week, hasn't it? That's right, yeah.
A fair outfit.
It is.
Although there's a few wee caveats with that, I think, that's holding it back a bit. But, yeah, for me, it's keeping it local. And it's... Like, I could service... It's one of those awkward ones, and you hear this all the time, is I could service the repayments.
Yeah.
No bother. I've no issue with that.
Yeah.
But it's the initial 300,000 because to get that, and I talk about this in my podcast quite a bit, is you need to be rich to buy a farm, right? There's no two ways about it. You do, like,
The real thing is, which I get a bugbear about north of the border, is the no value. You can't take an agricultural charge.
What's that?
Agricultural charge, so south of the border, yeah? If there's a partnership business came up to me and they said, look, Mark, we want to, for ease of figures, we want to buy that farm for £1 million, yeah? So loan to value, it's £750,000. Where are they going to get that £250,000 from? Yeah? If it's a partnership, they could have 600 milking cows, 600 followers, worth 1.5 million. We will lend against that agricultural charge. So we will make up that 250,000 with that agricultural charge. It's the same as a debenture. Yeah.
You keep mentioning dairy cows. I know dairy's
Big down my area.
Well, and dairy's famously easier to get
Yes.
finance.
Yeah.
It's a
Because you
regular,
have the cash flow.
Yes.
regular milk check.
Yeah.
You know, fairly stable. I mean, it fluctuates a lot, of course, but fairly stable. What about sheep?
Sheep,
So if I
still do it.
at current bloody used with lambs at foot prices,
Well, if the sheep game listeners keep going up,
Yeah, exactly. We could
The
plateau.
sheep price.
Yeah, exactly.
Stick keeps going up.
did we not talk about this off? Did we talk about this on camera?
it was off air.
It was
on
off air. I mentioned earlier that it's no coincidence that since the sheep game started, it started at £2 a kilo before I started the sheep game. We're now at £4 odd a kilo, nearly 5 for spring lamb. So
So
there's a
what-
direct link.
I'm telling you, it really is.
Why are you encouraging it?
Well, Jimmy Little says it's
You're
all
meant to be
do
on
with
Harrison Hetherington's team.
No, but it's
It's all thanks to H&H. The lamb prices go up.
Exactly.
it's to do with the sheep game listeners. So like, if it keeps going up next year, they'll be worth 300 quid.
Making sheep great again.
But all those assets you
I've got
built
a red
up
basement.
that you own yourself, Cammy, yeah, like, you know, your kids, your sheep, there's value in there. If it's south of the border, we could take something called an
Is that right?
agriculture charge.
So you can only do that in England and Wales?
Yeah.
Right.
So they don't do that in
and I think it's
reckon
really...
my
sorry.
stock are probably somewhere near, well, the
So-
current used with lambs at foot rates are wild, but they're probably
Yeah.
pushing £400,000.
So how do we change that? How do
Or what's
how do we
what's-
change that policy in Scotland?
I was speaking to Terry about this because Terry does a lot more work north of the border than I do. And he says they're banging their head against it. There's some proposals, but they aren't going to be workable. So as far as I understand, the proposal is that if you had an agricultural charge or a chattel's mortgage in place, you had to notify the bank when you sold a sheep or a beast. It's not really workable.
No.
So is this something that needs to happen at Holyrood level?
Yeah, it really does, because seeing farmers, you've done a valuation for one of my farmers, Glenn, yeah? That farmer, he wanted to build a young stock building. If he didn't, he would have to reduce stock numbers stupidly, because he was running 450 young stock on 6 different units, doing 36-mile round trip. These are dairy farms, yeah? But it's still the same in sheep. We've got some sheep farmers. We're lending some money to, in the north of the country, yeah? They're running 1,500 ewes, similar to yourself. We're taking ag charge, and, you know, including the ag charge is machinery, if it hasn't got HP against it, yeah? There's quite a lot of value built up there. So
Well,
that is
I have a
something.
Nissan Navara pickup with no HP on it.
There you go.
That could be thrown into the mix.
So really, this is like, so is this something like Scottish, like National Farmers Union need to have
Needs to have.
a discussion
Well,
with the
strongly believe.
policymakers to get it on their
Interestingly,
manifesto?
For the
election,
Our
yeah.
Fed by Farmers, we have Martin Kennedy coming in the next week or
Okay.
two, and I've got Jim Fairley,
Oh, great.
who
Yeah.
is the MSP for Agriculture and
Yeah.
Connectivity.
Just
coming
you
in-
put
he's
yourself
coming
in
next
your
week, so
scenario.
we'll
So
ask
say,
him
look,
that.
I've got these assets, but they're not worth anything to the bank because we can't put a charge against it.
Listen, I'll put that to them.
This is
Yeah.
massive. Because this is sort of policy we need to get changed if we are really going to get the next generation
True
into
right.
farming at all
True right.
at all levels.
Yeah.
So really, these things. This is at
Well,
government level.
it's that thing. I'm stuck in a spot where, now, I'm not saying I'm going for that farm at all, but if I was going for that farm, the only way I could finance the initial deposit to yourselves would be to sell
All your stock.
3/4 of my
Yeah,
stock.
but that's what's making you the money.
And then
so-
what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know? Then how
Right.
do you justify the other land you have? Because I've only got 16 acres there, so I can't give up the other ground we have.
Do you own the other land?
I own nothing.
You own
Right.
nothing.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
So how can Oxbury? What would Oxbury suggest to Cammy in
Oxford
that scenario?
suggest is the biggest thing we need to see is viability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because if you can prove that you can service this 900,000 with your farming income and your external income, which you know, we need to see in that business plan. Terry or myself or one of my colleagues would sense check that to say, look, that's going to work. Yeah. The shortfall in security is a view that we could take. Yeah. For really good, strong businesses, very, you know, if we're sure it's going to be done, we'll take a view. Yeah. But obviously there's more risk there, isn't there? But certainly if in south of the border, we would look at the agricultural charge, which will fill a massive part of that gap.
So and you would look at sheep as well as
Oh yeah,
dairy.
without
yeah.
doubt.
So
we don't-
anything,
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought any assets, agricultural assets.
Chickens,
Yeah.
there's lots of them. You need lots of
You
them,
need
but
a
there's a
few,
value
aye.
in them. You
Yeah,
pay
yeah,
for them. There's a value in them there. Yeah, pigs. Yep, this agricultural charge, speaking to my Scottish colleagues, they say really holding the businesses back.
See, that's something I knew nothing about.
There you go.
That's interesting. And a lot of folk in the same boat.
There is.
Well, I'll chin Jim about that when he's in and see if he can chase that up with the Scottish government, because it seems like a simple tweak. What is the reason for not doing
It'll be
it?
Scottish laws.
Scottish laws.
Scottish laws. It's slightly more technical.
Yeah. I'll speak to Terry because he's been speaking to people, some of the solicitors he's dealing with.
Okay.
And I'll speak to Terry to give you a chat before you have that meeting. When's that meeting?
22nd or something.
Right,
That's
I'll
booked
get him to speak to you in the next week.
But I know you're saying, Cammy, you don't want to like go 10 mile down the road, but 16 acres, are you not better going
10
for...
miles. 10 miles.
But
I know
you would go 10 miles.
Yeah.
But are you not, like 16 acres, are you not better like with 150 acres without a big, massive building?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So like,
no, this is what I'm saying. Like I can build the sheds.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah, and that's why I've not been like, this is the dream farm, let's go for it. Like, if that was the dream farm, I'd be all in for it. I'd sell the sheep and go for it. But really, it's like...
You're almost better with 150 acres covered in rashes and make it into a real farm.
Yeah, you can. It's easier, to improve the ground, to put the sheds on the ground rather than bring the ground to the sheds.
Because I look at a lot of successful dairies, going back to dairy farmers, and they'll have started off, maybe third generation now, but their grandfathers would have started off like with a croft, and they bought that, improved it, sold it, and then traded 4 or 5 farms, and all of a sudden they've got this beautiful thing today.
Yeah,
and that'll be your dream. But start off with a bit of land that's not that great and make it into something great.
Yeah. The big thing for us that would make it maybe a good move is the fact, as I say, that we rent a premises and it would tie everything up together, and you could justify it in that sense. That you're then dropping the big rent.
If you didn't have this,
a mortgage, I would be no point touching it. If it was just sheep, it would be no point touching it. Yeah. But it's just a thought, and it's just interesting to hear the finance.
It really is.
It was Oxbury I was pointing in the direction of.
Great.
Mainly, I guess you guys are really coming to the fore now because you hear the name mentioned all the time. The fact you're on this podcast.
Yeah, which is really exciting. And that momentum is building. And you know what farmers are like. You do a good job. Yeah, they tell the mates. Yeah? And it's not just the farmers, it's the feed companies, it's the vets. I've had some of my best recommendations from feed companies. Yeah. They've gone into a farm and said, he's done that for this. And they said, right, let's get him out there, which is great. Yeah. What we've got to make sure, we pride ourselves on service, getting out there quick, get an answer negatively or positively, hopefully positive all the time, as quick as they can. Yeah, and we've got to make sure we do that.
And you'll have had massive challenges like any new business going from ground zero. Yeah. And your growth, that'll have been a big challenge over the last 3 years of startup. Yeah, Mark.
I think the growth has been phenomenal. Speaking to
your biggest challenge.
Yeah, Nick and James, the MD, Nick Evans, who you met at CMEX, and James Farrar, I think the auditors have been a bit surprised how quickly it has grown. Yeah. And they thought, hang on a sec, new bank set off like this, and it's just racing away. So they've asked some questions, but then we show them what our book looks like. And farmers are good people to lend to. Yeah, their credit scores are good. Yeah, and generally speaking, they're secured by tangible security, being land which is only going up in value from over the previous years. I think our unsecured lending book was only 1.5% of our lending book. Yeah, so explain that to them, and they think, oh yeah, it's good.
It's quite nice to hear that, actually, and it's quite refreshing because a lot of the high street banks, as you mentioned previously, have moved away from that, and now you say, oh yeah, RBS, they don't want anything to do with farmers, or that it's not on their priority or things like that. And that seems to be a common theme going through that agriculture. So it's nice to hear that is coming back with Oxbury, that, in our industry, like I say it time and time again, it's people deal with people. Yeah.
It's relationships.
And farmers are like that, they deal with people. Yeah. They don't want to deal with a computer or a person or a call centre or whatever, because they've got a real business on their doorstep that they have to make work.
Yeah. And we're really proud that a lot of the team, the field team, meaning the ones out and about, are from agricultural backgrounds. So they know the stuff. Yeah, they know the local area.
So one thing I would ask you, touched it there, you said like the land prices over time, they go up. They always go up. So to me, it would seem like there's not a big risk. So why do you still need a 25% deposit?
Mainly being, if you bought a farm for £1 million, we put 75%. If you were struggling financially, probably the odds are that everybody's struggling financially. Are you with me? So if, for sake of, if you valued a sheep farm, a big, expansive sheep farm at £1 million, and we put it 75%. We put it a bit more because we trust in the valuers and we make sure we got good values doing it. Yeah. If the industry was struggling and you couldn't pay, we'd expect that everybody else couldn't pay.
Yeah. So it gives you that kind of
gives us
buffer.
a bit of leeway. You know, some banks will only go down to 60%, so it's a big chunk of money that you need in.
Oh yeah, and it makes it is the point I've made. Like for me to, let's use this example we mentioned earlier, we say 300,000. But to me, for me to have 300,000 to put in a deposit means that I'll need to have made £400,000 of profit. And then I've paid 100 grand in tax to be left with the 300,000.
Yeah.
It's not just a case of having 300,000.
No, it's
that
not
has to be
there.
profit I've made.
You know, obviously, in some circumstances, you can do alternative security like a property or a house. You know, sometimes that's not there. Yeah. It's the hardest thing to do. You touched on it, Laura. The new people coming into industry, and I'm really proud of Oxbury. In September 2022, they launched New Gen. So the biggest obstacle to anybody coming in is that cash, that deposit. So we will support new people to the industry if they're under the age of 40 to take on. They'll be interviewed by Nick Evans, and one of myself and a member of our credit team to look at their project to see if they'll support them. And what we do, most businesses, if they're going to struggle, they struggle in the first 2 years. So Oxbury will pay for a consultant to be involved initially before they do the lend to make sure the business plan is doable and achievable, and follow up for the next 2 years to make sure it's monitored. It's great.
And you guys pay for that consultant?
We guys pay for that, which is huge. And there's been so much take up on that.
That's phenomenal.
So much take up. And, you know, we've got some great businesses. You know, some dairy farmers have done it. There's a big range. I think we've had about 140 applications, which is great. The scary thing is, as you touched on, Cammy, some of these rented properties, when they come on the market, there's one in North... the Westmoreland. There's one in Westmoreland for a 30-year tenancy for a dairy unit. Needed investment for it. We had 18 applicants for it. Wow. Out of 32, Oxbury had 18 applicants. And the problem is conflicts of interest. I can only deal with one of them. So I dealt with one. We had to get 18 different colleagues looking at it. Sadly, none of our customers got it. But the beauty of it is these people, these young men and young women, know that for the right business, we'll support it. So they haven't been successful in that tenancy, but they're ready for the next one.
That follows on nicely to something that you talk quite a bit about, Cam, on the Fed for Farmers podcast. You mention quite often about tick.
Yeah.
Just stick the sheep. Just stick those 2,000 sheep on the tick.
Give me into trouble for that.
No, it's not trouble. It's just a little bit about. I want Mark to tell us a little bit about the Oxbury Farm Credit Account. It's something I think that no other lending facility does. We work with quite a few other lenders, but it's on lease. We work with Finance for Farms and Rural Finance, but they're on leasing livestock.
Yeah. Well, I would say with the tick thing, partly it's a bit tongue in cheek because you know the only people that really give tick are your drug dealers. You know, so and I used to work in I never had a drug dealer. I promise. I used to work in the police.
And you're not a drug dealer.
And I'm definitely not a drug dealer. But jokingly, you know, that like sheep is the drug. You know, that's maybe the link to getting ticked because it's like, I need more sheep. I'm chasing the sheep, not chasing the dragon. But so you used to get all sorts of fallouts over tick, etc., and quick borrowing. And like, I promise, and it is that kind of same thing. Like, I promise I'll pay you back next week. You know, it's like, can I tick these store lambs? I promise I'll pay you back next Thursday.
And I suppose when interest rates were 0.5%, it wasn't such a strain on our business, but also on the auction system. I don't want, if H&H is successful, I don't think that's great. I think I want every auction system or every auction market to be successful in the UK. And I suppose now with interest rates going up, that really puts a strain on cash flows for that type of livestock marketing.
Well, for everyone's business, isn't it?
For everyone's
cash flow,
business,
on all your commodities you're buying, not just livestock. Farmers have that cash flow problem.
Yeah,
same as every business.
Everybody does. But I think the Oxbury Farm Credit Account is a great option for buying livestock. So tell us a little bit about that, Mark.
So it's a second line of finance. It probably stems back to 2008 when the financial crunch came along, when the banks are having to set capital aside to match the overdraft facilities. So the banks pulled their overdraft facilities in, so they weren't setting as much capital to one side. The input finance schemes, because of the capital involved with that, they were pulled. So the farmer, instead of using their overdraft facility, would use their supplier. So they'd use their fertiliser supplier and their seed supplier. So Frontier and Hutchison were the main people who spoke to Nick and James, who set up the bank, and said, look, we're not a bank. We've got all this money sat out owing to farmers. We're not a bank. Why are we financing it? So we put a scheme in place, and that was probably how Oxbury was created, Oxbury Farm Credit Facility. So if you bought your fertiliser or your seed, you had an option. Do you want to pay for it up front, or do you want to pay for it for an Oxbury scheme? So Oxbury, your customer would be put in touch with Oxbury. You get your details like your last 3 years' accounts, last 3 months' bank statements, details of the farm operations, do a farm credit reference to make sure it's a valid customer. And we would put a facility in place to cover the input finance schemes. So that's how it all started. Really successfully, a lot of people used it. When I started Oxbury over just shy of 2 years ago, Scott Donaldson, your MD at H&H, contacted me and said, Mark, we look at our balance sheets, and that money is sat outside to the farmers. People have bought store cattle on the promise that they'll bring them back. Cammy with his sheep, he's going to come back and sell his sheep back. So they said, look, we want an extra line of finance for our farming customers, which makes sense. Yeah. So we've got a link in, and it's all automated that, say, for argument's sake, somebody went in and bought some store cattle from Carlisle. They'll have an option on an invoice, and it'll come through the computer on Oxbury to say, I'll pay it straight out of my account, or I'll put it under my Oxbury facility. Yeah. So Oxbury facility will be at a level which is what you require and what we think is a viable level to be paid back and cover the interest. Yeah. So that can range from, some people just go for a 50, 60 facility. We've got some people up to 400,000 facility.
Your addiction could be like, go off the Richter scale now.
Yeah. So how much could I possibly get? So when I go to the market, generally speaking, it'll be, quadrant. It'll be like either they keep the full check for the lambs I sell or the sheep I sell, or if need be, they would do a 50-50. How does it work paying back Oxbury in that situation?
Paying back, you get an option. Yeah,
Right.
Potentially an invoice comes in, so it might be an invoice of £15,000. Yeah, you would either pay it from your current account or pay it from your Oxbury facility.
No, but what's the payback options?
Yeah, so like when I I've bought £50,000 worth of stole lambs off you. I start selling them in dribs and drabs.
Okay, it's a 12-month facility. It's a facility for 12 months.
When I sell, let's say I sell a pair of lambs for £10,000.
Yeah.
Can I take that full 10,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as it's paid back in 12 months?
Yes.
No, and then potentially, if you need the facility next year, it's renewed again.
It's a facility. It's quite flexible how you pay it back.
But you have to pay it back in 12. You have a year, basically.
Yeah.
No. Well, it is in place for 12 months.
Just rules. Okay,
it's a 1% the amount you pay for a setup. And if you need that, if I would say we set up one this week, you would renew it next May.
Yeah. So it's actually like an overdraft that will sit as long
second
as...
overdraft.
It gives you that flexibility, doesn't it?
But it's a much more competitive rate than most overdraft facilities.
Yes.
And it allows you, if you're going through a period where you want to pay off a wee bit more or a wee bit less, depending on where you are in your situation.
There is a 3% every month that you pay back. For argument's sake, if you had a 100,000 facility and you're fully using it, you'll pay 3%. So it's not a static facility, but you can redraw that next time. Mm-hmm. I think I've been to auction markets. I live down in Garstangham to Brock Market, and I once went in there, and it was February, March, and one of my customers bought some cattle in, and I thought, why you bought these 8 store beasts in now? And he said, well, I just need some cash. And it was a bad time to sell anything. And I said, right, take them home and I'll get an extra facility in. Because sometimes the relationship isn't there with their bank to say, look, I do need this facility for 3 or 4 months until I get these cattle out. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem with a lot of the high street banking systems there now. The relationship isn't there. You ring up and you get a call centre.
And they're very rigid.
Just as we were saying before, weren't we?
Yeah. It's the rigidity of it,
So the beauty of it is it's an extra line of finance for the farmer. Yeah. I'll go back to my bugbear of north of the border is it is limited if you cannot get an agricultural charge on your livestock. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because for argument's sake, we might go up to 50, 60,000 for somebody north of the border. But if we had an agricultural charge, we'd go a lot further.
And also I like it for the likes, I'm not saying you, Cammy, but for a young person who doesn't have the cash to buy livestock, that you're already building up a relationship with the likes of Oxbury, and then if the next opportunity comes along, you've got a great track record.
And folk instantly think Oxbury. I mean, for me getting started, it was massive. Between it was Ayr and Lanark were the first two that I got finance off of.
Yeah.
Or tick. Got finance off of, to get me started.
To start your addiction.
And to start the addiction. And like, if only they'd said no, I'd been in a much better place. Do you know what I mean? If only they'd just done me a favour and said, no, Cammy, don't. This is a dark path you're going down.
Turn around.
but we all know the value of stock now compared to what was due to you, Cammy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's massive.
Due to the sheep game.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Jimmy Little.
Look at Store Castle, what they were 5 years ago to what they're worth now. And that's all working capital. It needs to be covered somehow.
The money, the cash that's being tied up year on year is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
True.
I mean, I've said it before, like, see, if sheep hadn't went up in price the way they have, then I wouldn't have, I probably would have had to give up. Because the amount of rents I'm paying, like, we rent everything, seasonal lets. There's no more security than 50 weeks.
Yeah,
and it's expensive, and it only works. Well, my accountant would say it doesn't work, but in my head it works because sheep have continued to go in price, so it's justified the borrowing, etc. to grow, the borrowing just to pay rents. Yeah. With the view that I need to hold the stock. I want to keep my ewe lambs rather than sell them.
Because you build up those numbers.
To build up the numbers. And that's only worked because sheep prices have continued to grow. But it does go back to that old thing, and, it's beggars can't be choosers, as they say. But an interesting outlook that I never thought of is that, like, everything's cheaper if you're rich. Do you know what I mean? So I use the example, like, when I bought my Nissan pickup, it was list price 16,000. Yeah. Right? I paid about 20,000 for that pickup through interest. But the rich person pays 16,000.
Gosh.
Do you know? So it's getting the balance between pushing forward hard, financing to get further ahead, and thinking actually you're better to consolidate where you are and be the rich person and just pay, buy the things out, buy what you can afford, rather than stretching yourself to chase something else. But I mean, that's why you guys are there to stop people being too stupid. Yeah, well, that's it. We obviously, we're accountable for anything we lend. We're audited every three months, and we've got to put, when I do a lending proposition, I've got to put my name against it. Yeah. So it's really, that's why we do our due diligence. Have you made an ask at any of them? Do you know what? I was just saying this the other day. I haven't had a for sale sign after 22 years.
There you go.
Which I will put that down as, maybe I haven't been pushing it hard enough, Cammy. I should be pushing it
harder.
That is stretch. There's been a few difficult times the last 22 years, so that's impressive. It's really good,
but farmers are amazingly adaptable. Yeah,
very much.
They'll make it work. They'll sell that outlying field to make things straight. Yeah, because they're proud people. Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about money. Let's talk a little bit about Air Show on the weekend. Were you there, Cammy?
Yes, fantastic. What a spell of weather like we've had. It's been great.
I was expecting you to see like a big sunburnt neck and.
Well, thankfully for us, we have a new merchandise trailer, nice awning, so we were in the shade with a nice breeze coming through all day.
Was it busy?
Yeah. It was great. It was mobbed. I mean, the only thing holding it back probably is the fact that most of the dairy boys were at the silage.
Mad at the grass.
Mad at the grass.
Was there some like Robbie one, like the Matilda who was reserved?
You just wanted to give Robbie a shout out on the podcast, didn't you?
He's paying for it. He told me
he rang on the way here. Robbie Scott, gave him a ring on the way here.
But his car is
Matilda,
the sidekick Matilda, who was reserved at the Expo. She was champion. So that was.
I don't know. I saw the boys there. I didn't actually see. I'm sure Robbie was there, of course, but
the boys do all the work. Actually.
Well, that's who I saw doing the work. I saw the boys hard at it, so I'm sure they did well. They usually do. They put a lot into it.
Did he win with the sheep as well?
Kyle won with his.
They're big sheep men now too. Yeah, another one we've influenced, brainwashed into the sheep.
I'm interested how many people go into sheep. The really top pedigree Holsteins, but they have a sign line on the Beltex of Texels.
My husband will never ever be one of them.
It's
never ever.
I'm sure. It's a good thing.
What about a Valley
tax bill?
Yes.
A big tax bill coming. Let's buy some Texels. There's a black hole to throw the money. We'll all just set fire to it and keep warm.
There probably is a little bit of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you can put them in a corner of a shed. They don't take up a lot, do they?
Yeah, but I think there's more and more. There must be more and more of the dairy farmers looking at the sheep job now and thinking we should be getting into store lambs.
The store lamb business for a sheep farmer, if they don't want to, it means you can't. Like,
depends, It depends on the grass.
They eat grass. I wouldn't sacrifice the grass for some sheep.
No, neither would we.
It's funny that mentality. So like
you want
some dairy farmers swear by it, thickens the sward and the sheep eat it down, and you get rid of them in January.
But I would want to you want to cut your first cut. Yeah, that's even late.
If you get like the spring that we've had, that field is not going to be any good if it's been trampled.
Down in Lancashire, because of the price of fertiliser, over the last 3 years, I've seen less sheep over the winter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some people do. You're the same. There's two camps.
Some dairy farmers, are all
Absolutely,
for it and
two
they see the
camps.
benefit, and then there's others just.
I think the people who love it's I can see it. I can see the attraction a little bit like your drug addiction. You know, go buy in stores and sell them. I mean, that's addictive, isn't it? Like,
That's exciting.
It's the buzz of the market.
There's the whole like I got them for 60 and they're like 210.
Yeah.
You know, but that's a. And some people, and that also keeps your brain really healthy, doesn't it? Like trading stuff. It's
I might do that if you buy them at 60 and you make two.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds good.
Actually, hang on a minute.
Still land for 60 quid.
Donald will never have
Still
sheep
land
on
for
his
60
farm.
quid.
If he heard that, I think it might even convince him.
Yeah. No,
But there would have been a little bit of that at the start, the first bit, and then obviously they
now
gone through
it's
now.
gone away.
Yeah, it got crazy. And to be fair, we spoke about in the Fed by Farmers podcast. It's like, I hope, and I can see this as like, there's less and less people want to lamb sheep, and there's less and less people want to calve cows. It seems to me, and there's a lot. It seems to be getting more and more popular. The store cattle's always been a strong thing, isn't it? But store sheep is getting very strong, and I hope that just means that there's more competition at that end, so the producer gets a
It
better
also
kickback.
means there's a great opportunity for people who want to work.
Yeah. That
I think you're touching a huge thing there. I see the biggest sort of break in a lot of sort of businesses is staff, huge staff. You know, I've had two guys put in rotary parlours in when their existing parlour was only probably 8 and 10 years old. And I said, why are you changing it? And he said, because I need to do. All my herdsman's leaving.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
It's a big challenge in all industries, though, isn't
huge.
it?
Yeah.
Getting good people to do good
If
jobs.
you've got a fleet of trucks or you own restaurants or you whatever that is, we don't have enough people to do the jobs.
Yeah.
absolutely. On that cheery note.
So I think that
That was a horrible ending, wasn't it? That was a horrible
He didn't mention running markets though, so it must be all right. Didn't he?
It must be good there.
Doddle for them
Oh,
to get
it's
started.
easy, eh?
Yeah.
It's easy.
You
People
do,
are.
yeah.
We have to.
We just
we
pack
have to
time.
chase them away.
Yeah.
You have to, bolt the door at night.
Especially
don't
if I get to work with. No, you have to pay to work with me.
we? Exactly.
They can work their way up to that.
Oh dear. Anyway, that I think. What's the time now?
Oh, we've done over an hour. Well, yeah, about an hour or so.
Oh,
Perfect.
that seemed to go. But
Yeah.
I would like to thank you, Mark, for coming in and tell us about that. It was very.
Thank you very much for having us. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you
Really
very much.
interesting stuff.
And thank you, Cammy, for sharing a little bit about the sheep game and
The
hopefully-
busiest man in Britain.
Oh,
Ayrshire.
If not Ayrshire, definitely.
Maybe
Definitely Ayrshire.
Stuart, we'll go Stuart.
He's the best guy in Stuart.
Narrow it down. Even some of the farmers in Stuart. I'm not sitting making a podcast in the middle of the day. Fair play.
No, it's been really, really good. And I'd like to wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
For the rest of the year. And you,
We'll
Cammy,
put
all the
all
best of the
the
year.
details of Oxbury, your links and things like that
Yeah,
in our
please do.
description, things
No,
like that.
very
Anyone wants
exciting
to
times. It's
Get in
really good.
contact.
Thank you.
And have
Absolutely.
more questions, then please get in touch.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Well, I thought the finance bit was going to be a bit heavy, but it wasn't. And I was really enjoyed watching Cammy's face at some of the things Mark was saying. It was kind of like maybe it wasn't. Maybe his Cammy looks like that. Maybe that's just his way he looks. But it was.
Yeah, he was you could see
I could see him.
cogs turning.
Yeah, I'm not going to buy 16 acres. I'm going to buy 1,600 acres. No, but
'Cause
it
I
was.
can.
But yeah, but it was.
It was interesting to hear the divide of, we're all about a united nation, but the Scottish England.
That has to
The
change.
difference in policies
That has to change.
and the effects that it's having on business now is
in Scotland.
it's crazy.
That's really
Agricultural charges. It's just,
The policymakers in Scotland need to listen to this,
they really
and
need to take that up.
they need to get it on their manifesto. That
It's really holding Scottish business back,
big time.
big time. So great conversation there.
I really enjoyed it.
And I think we learned a lot. Well, I learned a lot, to be fair, and all their next gen offering from Oxbury I thought was really good.
It's all about
the
the
consultancy.
it's all about the next generation, isn't it?
Great support, fantastic support. So thank you very much for listening to another episode of The One and Only. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, tell every man and your brother about The One and Only. He's been the one and only Glyn Lucas.
And you've been the one and only Laura Millar.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys. Until next time.